Hey everyone, welcome back to the Adobe Live illustration stream today. We're here on Behance making awesome digital illustration. I'm your host, Alice. I'm a San Francisco-based illustrator, and I'm here with the amazing Meg Hunt.
Hi.
Who joins us from Portland.
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. Yes. Thank you for being here with us today.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hi. My name's Meg. I am an illustrator in Portland, and I've been working as an illustrator since 2005. So I think I overheard before on the previous stream people saying, like, what is an illustrator versus a designer? And usually it just means I get to draw a lot of really cool pictures with characters that kind of mesh shape and line and texture into like this really fun kind of world that you can inhabit. That usually means like doing stuff for like picture books or doing stuff for editorial illustration or product design or anything anyone will hire me for. So it's real fun that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great illustrations like these awesome fish that you see behind.
All my fish.
Yes. I've been following Meg's work for a while, and something I love about your work is it's so textural, and there's awesome like gestural movements and like a lot of really fun colors and collaging.
Yeah,
so
I'm kind of an art supply hoarder, so I love just being able to make a mess with things, and usually every day I'm working, I'm just like covered in charcoal and paint and all the things, so it makes it very fun.
Yeah, I love at the end of the day, I'm like, I was working digitally, but how did I end up with like paint all over my hands? Like, where did this like random blue paint come from?
No, the other day I had like hot pink just ink that somehow came, and I was like, I did not use hot pink. I was mostly working digitally. How did this happen?
I accept this. Yeah.
It is my life.
My fear is that I'll someday accidentally use a paintbrush instead of my Cintiq or Apple Pencil on accident.
I have like the opposite now where it's like if I draw in traditional media, then I got so used to working with an iPad that now I just keep trying to do gestures to undo things, and it's the worst when you're just drawing. It's like, undo. Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So.
So hey everyone in the chat. A lot of people are saying Meg and Alice equals malice. I'm down for that. I'm down for that. Team Malice all the way. I see some familiar faces from the last time I was on as well. So thanks for joining us. We're in San Francisco right now at Adobe HQ, but where are all of you based at? Maybe you could say in the chat. Hi, Tim. And I just want to give a shout out to our moderators, Tim and Val. Thanks for doing what you do. Yes, Team Malice. Yeah.
I see some friends on there too. Hi, everyone.
So why don't you, so feel free to put in the chat where you're tuning in from.
Yeah. Ooh, Norway.
Ooh, Mexico, Denver, South Africa.
It's not displaying for everybody to see.
San Jose, 6 miles from Adobe. That's actually close to where I grew up.
Really?
Yeah, I need that dialogue that says tomorrow.
Oh, so many people love your work, Meg.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Hey
to everyone.
Slight technical.
Yeah. Hey to everyone from tuning in from Europe.
Did you kind of hide it somewhere?
Oh, awesome.
But I'm not sure where that works.
Such a really diverse
Maybe by the iPad.
group of
Maybe
viewers. It's like 1 p.m. here, so it's afternoon time. Just had my afternoon coffee. But I'd imagine for those of you who are tuning in from Europe, it's probably nighttime. Rachel says, Meg, your hair is awesome. And that is super true. Yes. I was just talking to Meg about how upkeep of your hair. Yeah.
It took me like 10 hours in a salon chair with my amazing stylist, Janaea, who was trying to figure out how to make my hair work and change from green, which it was about 3 weeks ago, to blue because we have a green screen back here and didn't want to have my hair just completely blot out.
That would be kind of cool though.
In theory, but I don't think in practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're getting set up today. Meg's process involves a lot of analog to digital techniques. So she's already done a little bit of prep.
Yes.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
So the way that my practice usually works is I like to marry between traditional media and digital media. So I usually call it like a hybrid process. And what that basically means is I do a lot of switching back and forth, some digital sketching, and then I'll often print things off and then draw them with traditional media and then scan things in. And sometimes I have more in the drawing than I actually need, so I sometimes will like erase things and get rid of them just so that it tightens up to what I have in mind. Like I said before, I like using a lot of art supplies, and so it's a really good opportunity to just experiment. And I can kind of talk about that as I go through, which hopefully the screen now works. Maybe.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to see.
There's my dog.
Yes. What is your dog's name?
My dog's name is Levy. It's short for Leviathan. She is a cranky old lady who has a babushka hat on right now, which ties into our theme, into my theme, I swear. So let me just pull this open really quick.
So Meg's working on a piece today, all through this week actually. And we also, if you want to draw along, we totally encourage that. Every day we'll have a different...
Draw with us.
Yes, draw with us. It'll be fun. And share too. Every day we'll have a different theme. And at the end of the day, at the end of the session, so within the next like hour and a half, we're going to review all of the submissions that fall under today's theme, which is creating a piece of artwork that is related to promoting and supporting your local animal shelter. And then we'll be looking through all the submissions. Meg will be picking a winner.
Ooh, challenging.
We'll be reviewing, and Meg will be picking a winner. And then the winner will receive a print of the piece that Meg finishes this week. Awesome. So if you feel inclined, please draw along with us. It'll be really fun.
Yeah, I'd love to see what you guys can come up with. So yeah, let me show you a little bit of how my process tends to work. So first off, this is a digital sketch of the illustration I'm going to be working on today. And I like to, basically I like to just really rough things out and not get too precious, like get the composition worked out, but not get everything very dialed in so that when I get into the traditional media, it doesn't feel too stiff or dead in that way. And so that actually makes for some really weird, wonky surface shapes, which I really enjoy. I've been having a lot of fun drawing very kind of goofy looking animals lately, so so yeah, I kind of just use like a really loose like watercolor brush that's thicker and just like lets me kind of work things out without getting too precious that way.
So this is all analog.
This is digital actually.
Okay.
So first I kind of go through Photoshop and I'll draw these things out just really loosely. I really like, I think I've had an iPad Pro for about 2 years now, or a year and a half since they came out. And it's been really useful. I used to work with like tablet monitors and Cintiqs and stuff like that. And they were really fun, but they were kind of actually giving me like elbow pain after a while. And I needed something more mobile that would work and also just felt really comfortable. And the pencil is just so nice for that. So I just really want to stick with that going forward.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
Since I can use the iPad to kind of talk back and forth between my laptop and then it makes it really easy to kind of bounce back and forth. But yeah, so I start out with a digital sketch and then I usually print it off. So this is kind of what my printout looks like. Just so I can kind of see what the main ideas are, and I'll take it to a light box. I have like a really long, thin light box that I can then put an image, put a piece of paper over it and see how it goes. So then I moved from that.
So you're doing it digitally first on your iPad.
Yes.
In this case.
Then I'll print it out. Yes. And after I've printed it out, then I'll take a type of paper that I like, and that can vary quite a bit. Right now I was just deciding to use a thin drawing paper that I could layer and has some tooth to it so that when I use dry media, it'll work really well. So I went from this digital image to a more dialed in sketch to kind of get a better sense of some of the things that I wanted to have happen in it. But some things worked out well, and then some things I kept trying to fit this weird floofy shaped dog in the front into that space, and it just wasn't working. So I was like, okay, that's not really going to do very well. But I had to just get in there and start drawing. So then I kind of compared back and forth between the digital sketch and the traditional sketch. And then I realized in the sketch for the digital media one, I kind of angled her face different. Her nose was actually looking up, but because it's kind of blobby, I'd forgotten about it. And also, for some reason, in looking at the face afterwards, I felt I was drawing a Cabbage Patch Kid accidentally. So that's not a bad thing, but it just wasn't quite what I was going for. So then I was just like, okay, I'm just going to get into traditional media. I'll figure it out as I go that way. And so this is kind of the drawing that I've worked up, and I'll show you in Photoshop as well. But you can kind of see and hear some of the tools that I use. I love working with ink and a lot of black and white media because it's all going to go into the computer eventually and then just turn into textures that I can colorize myself. And I've been getting into using some gray media too, so that like when I change, if I take this drawing and say change it to like purple, all the grays will be like lighter shades of purple and they'll start blending in with any other colors that I put down underneath it too. So trying to save myself time, because a lot of times I draw really complicated things and then have to spend like hours and hours just coloring every single line and then kind of cursing myself for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of it's just trying to experiment and some of it's trying to just make it easier on myself. But I like making things busy, so it's fun in that way.
Cool. Yeah, so you start off with a loose sketch digitally, and then you printed it out, and then you did another refined sketch over it on the light box.
Yeah.
And then this third step is your like final scan.
Yeah, so this third step, I took another piece of paper onto the light box and then took my sketch and then kind of lightly worked it out and then went in with ink and let's see what else is in there. There's like some calligraphic pens in like black and gray. There's a couple marker pens that are grays. There's this really cool little, in the lower left, there's like this little square that I love a lot that's like this water-soluble carbon. It's basically like a portable ink wash. And so
awesome.
I can get really cool dry brushy lines and shapes with it. And then I even used like this pan pastel to get some like gray tones that were a little softer in that. So what that all kind of turns into when I scan it is, let's see.
It is, so Voodoo Val just said, wow, seeing all the steps of this is so amazing.
Oh, thank you.
That is so amazing. Yeah.
It's I don't want to say it's a weird process, but I feel like, so I used to teach for about 5 years and like having to share my process and show students and see how they worked with things. I realized just over the years, I just kind of made this very strange rabbit hole to go down. And it makes sense to me, but then trying to teach it to students, sometimes their eyes would just like widen and like you could see their brains just kind of exploding. Like, what are you doing? Why? And it makes sense though.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what we work out with after I scan it in.
Okay.
And this is just the raw image of it. What I usually will do is take this and I'll separate it out from the background so that I can basically lock transparency with it and then just start coloring over it. So all these textures can then be applied and I can knock out some lines, or if I want like some, say like these plaid lines in her little babushka hat to be lighter colors, I can change the color. So if she's got like a blue scarf and then you have light yellow lines, we can do that. And it's just really freeing to be able to like go in and draw on top of it and just like not feel too precious about it. So like because there's definitely things that I mess up and then I'm just like, well, I'll fix that later. I'll fix it in post. So
Yeah.
and yeah, it just feels, it's dialed in enough for me, but it's also just enough that I can like trust to destroy it if I need to, or just have some fun with it along the way.
Cool. So after you've gotten it scanned in to here, what are your next steps? A lot of people in the chat are mentioning that you've got a really impressive selection of actions.
At
the bottom, which you can see, at the bottom of the screen. There's a little panel.
It's all color coded and everything. So one thing that I went to Adobe Max last year and I went to a workshop that was basically talking about all the different ways you can level up with Photoshop. I'd used actions before, but never really knew too much of like what else I could do with it, or I used it for a couple of things. But then the instructor was basically going over this thing called button mode, which is really handy to just like set up your space a little differently. So down here, I moved the action panel basically down into the bottom because then it's not really taking up a lot of space for me and I can kind of see what everything is all at a glance. But these are all the different actions I have, and I can, when I switch it back to button mode, I'll kind of walk through some of those things. But mostly it was just after a while I realized I was doing the same things again, again, and again. I was like, why don't I make this a little bit easier for myself? And
Val just made a really good point in the chat. There is also, in addition to the contest that we're doing today, that will run to the end of today's session, we are also going to have a giveaway coming up in just under 12 minutes. And the way that you enter is just you've got to stick around. We'll be picking someone randomly from the chat shortly, and the winner today gets this awesome set of
Click back to where it was, and
Adobe
it's
related socks, which are very fun.
not- I prefer
So
it there, but if I can't, I'll move it.
just stay active in
move
the
it.
chat if you're interested in that.
We can get rid of the source. And then you can move it and then we can plug it back in. Do you want to try that?
I feel like that's just gonna possibly throw things off a little bit.
More
So-
socks.
So basically, all of my actions are broken down by some of the things that I do. So one thing I can do is select to fill in like the background color or the foreground color very easily. So like here, I can just fill the whole thing in and get rid of it. So
Yeah.
things like that are really helpful. I have a couple of things set up so that if I need to like resize them for the web, then that can work really well. Or if I need to, like right now I have two things open, and if I want to see both of them up on the same time, then I can do that. I can consolidate tabs. I can kind of view it at what the print size is too, things like that. And it's super handy to just be able to, at a glance, work through all of that. But in answer to what your question was before about like what do I do with my image, so right now it's just a straight black and white image, and I know a lot of people will use a method using channels basically to separate things out, and it's really handy. You can get a lot of really cool like grayscale effects with it, but what I've kind of stumbled on a couple years ago was a way to do this using layer masks that wasn't as destructive as with the channels palette, because when you do that, you kind of have to know exactly like what your levels are going to look like what your lights and darks are. And I was finding when I was doing it through that method, it would actually like blow certain things out, or like if there was a subtle paper texture that I didn't see in the scan, it would sometimes just get really dark and heavy and kind of muddy. So what I like to do with this actually is to bring it in, and what I'll do is I'll copy it. So Control A, Control C. I do a lot of key commands with this because that's also a good way to save some time with it.
Yeah. So right now you're trying. Sorry, not to.
Oh no, you're fine.
Right now you're. You've got it scanned in, so
Yeah.
you've got the color, like the black ink, and then also the white background, and you basically want to separate the color from the white background.
Yeah, so basically I want to get rid of that white background entirely. I want to only have the drawn elements, so that there's a way in Photoshop that you can basically lock the transparency, and so you would just have all this drawing on a transparent layer. And so when you lock the transparency, then you're not drawing on any of the transparent areas, and so that allows me to actually go in and say, like, I have all this black background up here. I can go and actually like color that. So if I want that to be like a brick red, I can start selectively filling that without like deleting all the other information going on there.
Cool.
So yeah, what I usually try to do is I'll copy the image, and then down here in the layers palette, I'll open up two layers. So
Two blank layers?
Two blank layers, yeah.
Got it.
And then
I'm kind of blocking. Yes.
Oh.
Okay. I was like in front of the layers. Okay.
Yeah, all my
the
tiny
layers.
layers.
Are over here. Yeah.
So with those layers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill one with black and one with white. And the one with black you want on top. So I'm going to just...
This is really interesting because I've never thought about doing it. I don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll try to go over it
Yeah.
a couple of times too, because when I used to try to teach this technique to my students, because part of the problem is like you're going to be like thinking in reverse when it gets put into a mask, because basically when you look at the mask, it'll be the inverse of what my it's actually going to be the inverse of what the drawing is. So where everything's all white, that's going to be black, and it's going to look strange in the little thumbnail, but the image itself will be like flipped right side out.
got it. Yeah,
So-
there's a lot of people in the chat mentioning like using. Brandon asks, have you ever tried removing the white background with blending options?
Oh, like switching it to like multiply or things
Yeah.
like that. I used to do that, and it's really good if you, if I want to bring this drawing in and keep it basically all the same color, or if I want to keep it black, then that works really great. But I like to actually have the control to like change the colors within the drawing.
Yeah.
And there may be a way to do it, but I haven't found it being super effective that way.
Right. You want to extract the black parts and then color them in, like make them purple or something.
Yeah, so basically I can do anything I want with this. So it's not going, by the time we're done with this, it's going to be very different looking than this.
Okay.
So I'm going to go and just fill the second layer that I had white. And then I have black and white. So now what I want to do is I want to put a layer mask on this black layer, which is my layer 2.
Okay.
So that's this button down here. And right now you can see that there's a mask, but you can't really see anything because we haven't drawn onto the mask at all.
There's nothing on it.
Yeah. So basically what I want to do is I want to actually go into the mask and edit it. And so I should be able to just hit Option and then click the mask. So now this is what your mask looks like. It's white. There's nothing happening for it. What I'm going to actually do is then paste my mask or paste my drawing into that mask. So if you look at it right now, it looks normal. But then if I go back to the actual layer thumbnail, it's weird and inverse, which isn't what you
Wow,
want.
I never thought about that. Oh my God.
Yeah, so everything is going to be like flipped from what you expect in that way.
I didn't know you could past graphics into a layer mask.
It's like the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
I used to use them a little bit. So part of my other background is a printmaker, and I would do a lot of screen printing. So I learned about layer masks in a way to kind of mimic what I used to do with this material called Ruby Lift, which is basically, looks like a red fruit roll-up that you can take an X-Acto knife to, and you cut things out. And anything that's red will wind up being your image for screen printing. So I was trying to mimic screen printing and trying to use layer masks to do that. And then I don't really remember how I figured this out. I think I just stumbled on like, oh, you can paste into the mask. And it was just like the heavens parted. And I was like, oh, I can do things now with this.
That's a game changer. Yeah.
Because masks are really great because you can just like, you can edit them. The reason I like this versus the channels method for separating stuff out, where it's basically you take the image and you paste it into a new channel. When you do that, basically what you have is done. Like it's transparent, you can't really edit it, so anything you do, you kind of need to do before you get started. This I like because it's, layer masks by default are kind of like non-destructive. You can work into them.
Right.
And so, as long as,
sorry.
No, you're fine.
Until you flatten it down, you can like edit it.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I can go in and I can draw, I can delete into things if I want to. Let's see if I can.
So I know we just went over that really quickly, but if any of you have questions, feel free to post them in the chat.
And I can do it again, so don't worry.
Because Meg is in the process of, doing like the next digital steps on her scan. So I'm sure like if you have questions,
I'll be happy to answer them for sure.
Yeah.
So like I was saying before, right now, the image is reversed. I don't want that. I mean, it could be really cool, but it's not exactly what I need. So what I'm actually going to do is go back into, I'm going to hold Option down and click the thumbnail for the mask to get back into it.
Right, okay.
And then what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to inverse it. So I'm going to hit Command and then I. And so now it's the inverse. And you can see I had to do like a little bit of correction on this before to try and straighten it because I scanned it, a little crookedly. So there's some white edges in here.
So you're cleaning it.
Just
this
a
is
little
gold,
bit.
everyone. This is like gold information.
The nice thing too is like this isn't that big of a deal because I can always work into it later, but I just want to, it's going to bug me, so I want to make sure I can get that in there.
Right. Maggie is asking if we could see it again. Yeah, just to...
Maggie is my studio mate. Hi, Maggie.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
I work out of a studio called Magnetic North in town. We have, I think, about 18 different artists working there. Some people work full-time there. Some people drop in and do screen printing and woodshop work. But we're very multidisciplinary, and it's super fun to kind of see what everyone comes up to.
Yeah.
So this is basically more of where I'm going with it. But I will step back a second, just kind of do it again so that people can kind of see that. Okay.
And while we're at it, also just a fun reminder that our giveaway is going to start in just a few minutes. So if you would like the chance to win these awesome Adobe socks. They've got like all the icons.
Those are pretty cool socks.
Yeah, pretty cool. Please stick around and you'll be able to maybe win
Just a
some.
style.
Yeah, and then for those who are just joining us, we're on day one with Meg. Meg's working on a piece that she did a little bit of prep work for. Now we're talking about how to take the scan that she made and then prepping it for like digital work. But if you also want to join along, feel free to draw and make a piece under today's theme, which is about making a piece promoting your local animal shelter. And you can also find this info in the challenge tab right next to the chat.
Nice. Yeah, draw some really cool stuff, guys. I want to see what you guys can come up with.
And feel free to like throw questions Meg's way. This is like a gold mine of like Photoshop how-tos.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I would love to answer any question that you guys have. So let me just go back one more time and show you. So I'm going to go and fill the 2 layers that I made. The one on top is going to be black, and then the one underneath I will paint or fill in white. And then I'm going to go and create a layer mask on the black layer. So again, this layer is where I'm going to be putting all the information from my drawing so that we can edit it and then get it set up to be able to edit and draw with. So I'm going to hold down the Option key and click the little thumbnail of the layer mask like so I can see that.
Got it. Now you're in the mask.
Now I'm in the mask.
Okay.
I can draw into it, I can paint into it, I can use any kind of image adjustments. It's super versatile, and it takes a little getting used to like knowing how to work with it, but you can use anything that, like if you use Kyle brushes and stuff like that, all those textures can be brought into it. And it can be really fun where you play with these things and then even using clipping masks on top of that, so that say you have a texture that you have like a very straight line drawing, but you want to bring texture into that, or some shapes that you want to scan in, like you can add on to this and do many different really fun things.
So awesome. Yeah.
So again, I'm in the actual view of the layer mask right now. So what I'm going to go and do is hopefully paste my drawing back in. But again, because right now if I go back to the actual view of this layer, it's going to be inverted. So what I'm going to do is just do Command I and invert into that.
Within the mask.
Within the mask.
Yes.
And again, this will look really weird, and part of the thing is just like switching in your head what you're expecting, because you'll want to draw black so that it will look white basically, and vice versa. So if I go back in here to the actual layer thumbnail, now this looks pretty good. Again, as I was saying, there's a couple little areas I can touch up. So if I have black, I can go back and kind of paint and just touch up some of these areas.
And while we're touching up, very exciting moment in our stream today. It's time for the giveaway. So the way it works is once we decide to begin the giveaway, you are automatically entered if you participate in the chat. So we're going to get started, and then someone will be picked randomly. Yeah, so maybe we could do a little drum roll.
No, just tell them chat hype, and then I'll write the winner on there.
Okay.
You guys can just
Okay.
Oh,
Keep going.
sorry, never mind. We're going to do that shortly. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I noticed on the chat, I think Shauna Lynn asked if I was going to Icon, which is the illustration conference. Which, have you ever gone to that? Or?
No, I haven't, but I want to, yeah.
Yeah. They're holding it in Detroit this year, and I am attending. I went to one in Portland a couple years ago, and it was super fun. So I'm really excited to hang out with some friends and make some cool art and meet people. It's kind of like prom for illustrators, I feel like, where you get to socialize so much in that way. So yeah, right now,
Okay.
oh, we have a winner.
Yeah, so the giveaway is happening right now. Those who chat have been automatically entered. And the winner is Dre V. Sanchez. So congrats, you win these awesome socks.
I'm jealous.
Now you can have an Adobe app sock party. Yeah. I'm jealous. I want them. I'm always running out of socks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure your dog steals them too, right?
Yeah, I have a dog who looks just like Meg's dog, actually.
Yeah, we have the same breed, which is pretty great.
Yeah, so congrats,
congrats.
Dre. Hey. Michael just came in.
Hello.
Yay, congrats.
Yeah.
Cool.
So exciting.
So,
back to kind of like cleaning up my drawing.
yeah.
Right now, it looks kind of okay, but the larger I get into it, you can kind of see a little bit, maybe harder to see on screen, but there's a bit of paper texture in there. There's also some points where I wasn't super tidy in terms of like erasing my drawing and things like that. So usually what I like to do is use some image adjustment in some way to kind of bump up the contrast a bit and get rid of this little artifact of like gray texture from the paper. So, there's a couple ways you can do that. I usually like using levels just because it works a little bit easier for me to kind of know between like lights and darks and things like that. So if I open up the levels palette, bring it down a little so I can see on my iPad.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not showing anything because I made a mistake. Haha. I actually need to select the thumbnail for the mask itself, because if I do levels on the actual layer, it's just full black. So you can't really do anything to that because it's just black. So if I select the level thumbnail, then I can actually go back in with levels. And so here you can kind of see your darks, your mids, and your lights. But again, this is going to have to be the inverse of what you expect. So if I go and pull the dark slider over, it's going to just like knock everything and bring it really white. Same if I use the white slider, it's just going to pull everything really dark.
Right.
So just in your head, just like flip what you expect and it'll come through okay.
Yeah.
So usually, I'll just kind of like bring it a little darker. And a lot of times I'll bring this and scan it or zoom in a little bit so that I can see better of what's happened. And then I usually will use the dark slider to just try to bring this up as close to white as I can. And I mean, there's still some like pencil texture and things, but I can go back in, I can erase that before I apply my mask. So again, this is why I like this, is because I don't have to worry about it being perfect and then realizing that there's like texture that turns into like kind of a dark speckle all over my drawing. I can adjust it and just keep playing with it. So I think
it's cool the way that you're using all of these like Photoshop features. Yeah, in ways that like are not immediately obvious, I think, to most people.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, Photoshop has so many different things you can do. So I've always been amazed, like, the different ways that I've learned over the years and seeing other friends, like, how they use the program, because, like, we all use it really differently.
Yeah.
But it's, you kind of cobble together your own toolkit, basically, over time. And, I mean, if I showed you the way I separated out drawings, like, the first time, it was like the most backwards way. It's so embarrassing. Because I used to, before I brought in like gray texture, I would actually just have like a black and white drawing, and then I would use threshold to basically separate it out so it would only be black or white, and then select the black, cut it and paste it.
Oh my gosh.
But that's not the bad part. But the bad part is I didn't realize you could lock transparency. So what I would do is I'd duplicate the layers as many times as I needed to.
Oh, that's
and then
not
each one I'd like
intensive.
erase into it and then use like hue and saturation. It was like so backwards. And then I saw cartoonists say, "Oh, you can lock transparency." I was like, oh.
Yet
Life can be so much easier.
however roundabout that is, it's still an impressive execution of the different Adobe like.
I mean, that's the thing, is like you can
features.
find so many different workarounds to get what you need. So there's no right or wrong way to do this.
Yeah.
And like I said, for some people, like this may be too much for what you need. I just really like the versatility of it, because you can just do a lot with it. And because it's in a mask now, if I wanted to, I could also like paste other things on top of it, and I can redraw it if I need to. But I usually just like make the image and then just kind of build it in from there.
Yeah, it's so cool to hear about your workflow. If any of you watching also have like interesting tips or certain types of like, work that you're doing with like masking, like feel free to put it in the chat and maybe we can all share and learn.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So like I said, this is pretty good, but what I'm going to actually go and do is I'm going to take my brush and so I have my brush palette over here. And I have a whole bunch of the Creative Cloud brushes, which is really great. I tried to organize them in some way because I used to like make variations and then rename them.
Wait, same.
Yeah, but after a while, I didn't know what each one did.
Exactly. Wait, my brushes, this is kind of related to Emmanuel's question about which brush is most useful. Like my brushes, it's so hard to like send them to other people because I'll name them things like the gouache brush that I like,
right?
Like lovely scritchy scratch. I'm like, I think this is chalk or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
they're kind of hard to figure out. Like here's one that I have that's called Flatty, and one's called Eraser Flatty. But it makes sense in my head, so it's like as long as it does that. Yeah, I guess in answer to your question, Emmanuel,
favoritos.
Right?
That's so funny.
It's kind of hard because it's hard to kind of figure out like what's the right brush for any of this stuff. Part of the reason I do this with traditional media is because I love all of the Photoshop brushes, but I feel like there's so much time that I spend like trying to find the right brush for the right technique that I want. And sometimes it's like if I use a brush, you know, an actual brush and not a Photoshop brush, it's like I can do 20 different things with that one brush that I can't necessarily do, or I don't know how to do as well with a Photoshop brush. So I really like being able to just like take a tool and just kind of use it in a lot of different ways and see how it can build up that way. The other thing too is just like digital, it's like, it's so streamlined and it's really fun, but I have like a slight wobble to my hand. I make mistakes. I'm left-handed, so I dip my hand in ink and smear stuff all the time, and I kind of like that. Like,
yeah, like your
oh yeah, glove. It's my very cool glove.
Yeah.
I have a glove, and I also have like a screen protector on my iPad so that I can, like the glass surface on an iPad's really fun and nice, but I like the texture because it feels a little bit more like paper in that way. But this just helps it as well, so my hand's not sweating the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the mistakes. You know, it's really fun to just like make something go awry and be like, well, I gotta work with that now and see where that goes. And I mean, you can definitely make mistakes digitally too, but I feel like I know too much of like what the tools can do. So I like those happy accidents in some way.
Those little imperfections.
Yes.
Rachel says go lefties.
Yeah. But that's a very roundabout answer to say that like it's hard to figure out like the right brush for things. Like for some of Kyle's brushes, for inking, a lot of times I like using his Mr. Natural brush because it has a little bit more texture to it. So let me just take this off for a sec. I'll put a new layer, just kind of show you.
Oh, Jim says he's been chasing a print deadline, so he hasn't been able to watch today.
Oh.
Hooray for replays. Yes, hooray for replays.
Yeah, we'll be here for you.
I really like watching this stream and like podcasts like this while I'm working.
Do you?
Yeah, because I feel like I'm participating in a conversation without actually having to. Like
I feel like I'd get too sucked. See, I love the idea of it, but I have to watch it afterwards because I get too sucked in. I'm like, what are they going to do next? And then I don't do my works.
I see.
But yeah, I like the Mr. Natural brush because like if I zoom in, you can kind of see like there's like a rough texture the larger you get, and there's like little white variations. And that's always the thing. It's like I love paper texture. I don't want it to feel super slick when I'm doing things. So that one's really good to kind of mimic some of the line art, but it's always a gamble. And the thing is, like, you find a tool that works really well for one piece, but not always for another piece in that way too.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is basically getting pretty good. Let me just go back into my layer, my mask thumbnail. I'm just going to like clean up some of these things that are kind of bugging me.
Val just mentioned in the chat, which is a super good point, that our challenge is going to, we're going to go over the final submissions for the challenge in just about 15 minutes. So,
exciting.
Check out the challenge tab for more details. It's really simple to upload your finished artwork to the form, which is linked in that tab. And Meg and I are gonna check it out at the end of the segment. And we also might look at a few entries in the middle. So, you know, if you finish early, feel free to submit as well.
Because I'm sure some of you guys are speed demons, so I really want to see what you guys do. I'm a slowpoke, so And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
also like trying to, yeah. That's why like some people are doing like 3 pieces, and I'm like, I think I need to do just the one. But, you know, there's all these things, all these textures and stuff. It takes
Yeah.
time.
So Jan asked if Alice is using Astropad for the iPad. Meg is
I
using
am.
Astropad,
Yeah.
and I'm Alice. I'm using computer.
You were using computer.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, right now I'm using Astropad, and it's been working really well for me to just kind of have analog. I used to have a secondary monitor, and I kind of miss having that because then I could like stream TV shows and stuff in the background. But this keeps me focused more. So, but it works really well, especially with like the USB function. So there's not a lot of lag.
Oh, no worries, Jan. Jan says sorry.
Oh.
No worries. Actually, a fun story. Meg and I know each other from a few years back.
Oh,
Meg
yeah.
used to be my teacher and mentor through this awesome program called Motivarty. And so I got to learn, or got to have a peek into
Yeah.
some of Meg's process.
We basically worked together for, I think it was like 10 weeks or so. Or something
Yeah.
around that
It was
time.
like fall. Like
Yeah.
The entire fall.
Yeah, and so like every week we would just have like Skype appointments, and you know, we had assignments that I think you were playing around with like more editorial stuff because you were doing more tech illustrations and trying to figure out like how to play around with different techniques. And so
Yeah, I was basically learning how to draw. I think that's
Really?
like, yeah, because I feel like that time period was when I learned how to like draw versus like freehand draw, like just learning more skills technically. For example, I used to do a lot more like vector work, where I would maybe draw like a little bit, and then I would spend the rest of my time like poking around with the mouse. And like working with you was really cool to see like how you just do everything freehand
Oh, yeah.
in Photoshop, and yeah, it's really inspiring.
Yeah, I think that came up in like the last stream too, just kind of talking about designers versus illustrators and how like some designers feel like they don't know how to draw, which is always strange to me, but I get it. Like a lot of times you're building images or assets to be used.
Yeah.
So you don't really think about drawing in the same way.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, not saying that people who do vector stuff don't know how to draw.
No,
I
no.
did vector stuff, and I did not know how to draw, or I was less good at drawing. But yeah.
Yeah, it's just like you're using a lot of different skill sets in that way.
Yeah. Josephine actually has a really great question is, what resolution do you scan your work in? And do you work a lot larger than your final piece because you are drawing as opposed to doing vector?
Yeah, it kind of depends. Sometimes clients will need a certain DPI for things, and I tend to focus on what they need. Usually I try to work about like 300 DPI for it. I used to do like 600 or larger, but I didn't really notice that much of a difference. So 300 usually will give me a pretty good size. Unless it's something that's like particularly huge, then I'll scan it higher. And sometimes I'll do a drawing a little bit smaller and scan it up. Thankfully, I have an oversized scanner, and that was like a godsend. Because
Oh, awesome.
otherwise, like if I had a drawing that was, say, like, 12 inches by 17 inches, and then I had to like scan that in, I'd have to like piece it all together, which when you're doing black and white stuff, it's okay. But like when you have grayscale added into it, then that's just like a nightmare. Like anything with washes, trying to get that to like look right is just very strange. So right now, all I'm doing is I'm using that Mr. Natural brush to kind of tighten up some of these things and erase out. I have a couple like pencil lines that I kind of forgot to erase when I was scanning, and just like tightening up a couple things. But I think overall, this is looking pretty good.
It's so cute. I love this little dog.
Yeah, the
This
dogs
little
are.
derpy dog.
This really angry Pomeranian is making me very happy.
I love it. I love it so much.
And there's another thing I will do in a sec too, because you may notice she doesn't have a face.
Yes.
And that probably looks a little weird, but I was drawing it, and then when I looked at the drawing, I was like, there's something wrong with this drawing, and I can't figure out why. And part of it was because it was 3 a.m. when I was drawing it, but then I was like, I think I can do this digitally and try to fix it. And then I realized I had angled things the wrong way in the sketch, and that's why it wasn't looking quite right. So what I actually did last night is I kind of redrew the face, and then I also realized, I don't have a leash for this little dog, so I may want to add some of those things in.
Yeah.
But I can do that later. It's not that big of a deal.
What do you do if you're doing the ink, you're inking the piece that you're about to scan in, and if you like make a mistake, But you already got like 80% of it down. Would you just keep it?
Within the drawing if there's a mistake? It kind of depends. Like if it's in a loose enough spot, like if I just had a big smear here, I might just like leave it and know that I can erase it later. If it's integrated into the drawing in a weird way, then I might have to either make a plan and be like, okay, I have to adjust for that, or I might just like paint over it and just like rework it into something else. And you know, that happens and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like trying to figure out like what the right paper you want to use is for things, like the result you're trying to look for, because there's no one right way or wrong way for this stuff.
Right.
But even with this one, like I was drawing this on Sunday and then I used a paper I forgot that doesn't really work with some of these things, and so I had gone like 2 or 3 hours in, and then I was like, this just isn't looking right, and I had to just throw it away and just start again. I was like, it'll be fine, but I really wish it worked out the first time. So
yeah,
you know, a lot of it's just like trial and error to kind of figure out what you like in that way.
Yeah. Ooh, some really interesting questions coming up around colors. Dorina wants to know if you, Dorina actually and Jan both want to know about like how you approach color calibration for your screen, and then when you like print it out.
Yeah, I can't remember the brand of it right now. I know that there's a color calibrator that a friend of mine helped me work with, because that's definitely an important thing, especially if you're using, you know, if you're doing things for print, and sometimes that's with CMYK, if you have like really vibrant blues and things like that, it's just not going to translate. So I had a friend kind of help me with like a portable calibrator to get that set up. I think it may have been Pantone brand, and I basically just looked at the screen and in a couple different lighting situations and got that set up.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just mostly I try to just work with it, thinking that things may get pushed darker. Most clients are pretty good about like taking good care of things or proofing things if they need to. But like if I'm going to work in something that I know is going to be for print, a lot of times I'll start in whatever mode I need it to be. So if I need CMYK, then I will set it up as such, because there's nothing worse than like starting in RGB and then realizing it's wrong and I'm like, oh, everything's muddy.
Yeah.
So that's always heartbreaking.
Anna, I love Anna's hashtag strong independent Pomeranian.
Thank you, Anna. That's great.
Yes.
Oh, Patrick, he says it's a Huey Pro is what we used.
Oh, okay.
So he's my buddy who helped me with
Yay.
that. So I think this is looking pretty good, and I can always adjust it later if I need to erase stuff. But the levels are pretty good, and all I have to do now is I can right-click the layer mask thumbnail. And so if I do that, it'll come up with a few options. It's like disable, delete, but what I want to do is just apply. So it's going to take all the information that's in the mask and apply it.
Okay.
So now it's actually a transparent background. There's no white to it. So if I toggle off my original image.
Magical.
And that.
Magical.
There's no white. It's great.
Yeah.
It's the most fantastic thing. I'm going to rename this to lines because I'll probably forget. I try really hard to, you know, order and label things. And I would always tell my students to do it, and then I wouldn't do it. And then be like, or again, like what we were doing with the brushes, I would like name it weird things. I was like,
yeah.
It's good when I need to know, but if a client needs to see it, I'm just like, not this thing, but the other thing, or something really backwards. It's like, that's not going to help them. But yeah, so this is my line layer, and what I can actually do is up here, again, is that lock transparency button in the layers palette.
Also some gold.
Yes,
this is gold.
Game changer
guys.
sort of thing.
Everyone.
So if you click this, it will lock all the transparent pixels in your image. So if I draw on it, like in these white areas, nothing's going to happen. Oh, Rachel, you were asking about if I teach classes. I used to teach at the college level at PNCA, which is a college in Portland. I taught like sophomore and then product design for illustration, which is super fun. I kind of stepped back from that a bit. I'm still kind of trying to figure out if mentoring could happen again. Unfortunately, Motivarity kind of, I think they decided to switch gears. But it was such a fun program to like work with people that way.
You should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to. So again, if I go and click that button, you'll see this little tiny lock show up down here. And that means it's locked. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this purple, which is really bright and obnoxious, but it'll work. So if I go and draw into it, you can see like nothing happens to all the white areas. And so I can go and selectively change things any way I want. And then like I was saying before too, if I decide to put, like say I want a texture over all this, I could always make like another layer. I can get my mouse. Where's my mouse? There we go.
So to answer your question, Christina, Meg's gloves, I think, are for preventing smudging.
Yeah, it's called like a smudge guard. It's really helpful like if you're working on a Cintiq, because a lot of times they heat up a lot. That like I would draw and then my hand would just get like sweaty and I would be uncomfortable. So it helps your hand kind of glide on the surface. I think it's also supposed to be useful for like traditional media, but I still smudge with it. So
yeah.
I mostly just use it when I'm working digitally, just because it gives a little bit of a smoother result that way.
I think it also looks cool.
Yeah.
For aesthetic reasons.
Yes, I can be like part ninja this way. Right? So right now, say I wanted to put like a texture on it, I could always take another layer and then say create clipping mask. And then in my actions panel, I have a texture I've scanned in that's like gray origami paper, which sometimes I'll just like put down because it'll give just a little bit of noise and texture in that. So if I hit fill origami, now that texture has been applied to the whole image, but because it's a clipping mask, it's not actually destroying anything. I can toggle it off and go back to normal that way. But if you look in a little, if I bring it up here, you can kind of see as it gets bigger, there's like a little bit more texture to it. So sometimes that's a nice way if you are like flattening things out with a really opaque color, but you're like, oh, this feels too digital, you can always like apply a texture over it, which can be really fun too. But
morning to MJ, who's joining us at 5 a.m. from the Philippines.
Oh, morning, wow.
Yeah. Oh my.
That's impressive.
That's quite early.
Oh yeah, Heather also says that the glove helps a lot for accidental touching.
I can imagine.
Yeah, because that would happen a lot where I'd just like start jumping when I was drawing, and that's not very good either. So, so as I was saying, she's pretty good. She needs a face though, and I did actually draw a face because I wanted to make sure I knew what I wanted for it. So the very descriptive Adobe face.psd. So she has this little tiny face. And I also decided I wanted to draw like a little knit bag for the bag she's carrying. Oh. And there's a little leash bit in here too, so that I can attach the Pomeranian a little bit more.
Got it.
Anything else I can go back in while we're drawing and actually add to it. But so I'm gonna bring this back down and paste into it. And right now she looks, it's hard to see against the black, so I'm just gonna turn it to purple so I can see it a little bit better.
Oh, cool.
So now I can kind of drag her into place because you can see I angled her head one way and then I decided I actually wanted her to be kind of like tilting her head up in a weird way. She's eating this pear and having a good time. So. And this might need a little adjustment, so.
Yeah, so to Christina's comment about drawing the face separately, I think that was because you weren't happy, or you wanted a certain...
I drew it, when I sketched it out, I liked where it was going, but then it just didn't quite read as well as I wanted to. And this will happen sometimes, like, I get really comfortable drawing certain things, and then, like, when you get into, like, the details, like faces or really precise lines, I think the pressure gets to me, and then I'm just like, I messed it up. So a lot of times I realize it's like, okay, especially if I'm dealing with like a lot of textures and information happening, sometimes it's nice to just have a separate layer for the important stuff. And, you know, I can draw it digitally in there. And because the line quality is similar enough, by the time everything's all done, you don't really notice it.
Yeah. This is like, it's cool to see all these pieces come together. And for those who are just tuning in, Meg is working on this piece through the rest of the week. And if those who participate in the challenge every day, each day there will be a different winner, and the winner will receive a print of Meg's piece that she's working on. So, yes, so hyped about the print prize. It's going to be cool. I mean, I kind of want one.
I'm excited to see where it goes because it'll be fun. Some of the drawing I left a little bit open so that, like, if you guys want to suggest things maybe tomorrow, we can draw some things in.
Yeah.
I'm always open for, like, challenging my palette, too. So I can show you, like, I pulled together, like, a super loose palette that I was like, maybe this will be a good start. But a lot of times what I do is I just, like, throw things in and then decide, it's like, oh, that might work. But I can then, like, adjust sliders and things to get the colors just right. But yeah, it'd be really fun to see, like, if you guys want to throw me like a color like that I wouldn't ordinarily use. You can see up here in my swatches, after I was like, I'm gonna retool all of my Photoshop, I was like, I'll make a set of palette swatches, which I never did before. And then I realized, oh, I use a lot of colors, but I kind of use very similar colors all the time, and so I never realized that before. I was just like, I just throw all the colors there. It's like, well, maybe not. But yeah, if you're like, let's put some weird neon color in or something,
Yeah.
we can make something happen.
Challenge
that way.
accepted.
Yeah, just make this a really fashionable old granny.
Yeah. So I think we have a few awesome submissions already that were submitted via the form in the challenge tab. So in just a few minutes, maybe we'll look over, just 5 or so of these illustrations. And then at the end of the session, in about like 30 minutes, we'll be looking at all of them. So if you want to get into this session's contest and possibly win a print from Meg, be sure to get it in within the next like 30 minutes. And you can find more info about the challenge, which is about creating a piece to promote your local animal shelter, in the challenge tab.
Okay. So I think that's getting pretty good, and I can keep adjusting it, but I want to start throwing some color on here because I feel like I've just been like manipulating a drawing, and this is going to look very different once we get color in there. I saw one of the questions, Christina, you asked if I went to art or design school. I went to the University of Connecticut, and so it wasn't really an art school. We had a pretty small art program, but it was kind of multidisciplinary, and I got to work with printmaking and illustration together, kind of cobble together my own sort of course in that way.
Yeah, this isn't super related to your piece, but I mean, just as you're like making it. I've seen some questions in the chat about like how you got started and like how did you jump into illustration?
So, like I said, I went to school for printmaking and illustration together, so I wasn't really sure what that would translate out to in school, but I always really liked illustration from being like a voracious reader, and so I loved like picture books, and I loved like just the way that like stories could transport you into these worlds in that way. So when I went to school, I started getting interested in some like the more gallery aspect of things, but also like editorial illustration where you're solving a problem and sometimes bringing character into it. And that was really fun. And I didn't really, I want to say I didn't know any better, but I was just like, I'm going to try and do this. And so like I sent stuff out right before college, and this is like before all of social media. So it's like such a weird thing to think now, like my students, when they were, getting sophomore, junior year, it's like they have like all of their social media on lockdown. Yeah. They're all set up, and I was just like, oh wow, I did not have that. Yeah. So it was kind of fun, but in a way it was freeing me because I didn't feel as much pressure to perform in that way. So yeah, I just sent things out to some editorial clients, and it took a few years before I really got a good footing that way. But I just figured, I was determined enough to try and do something with it. And just kind of see, I always want to experiment and see if I can do new things. And so a lot of it's like reaching out to people and just like connecting with them and seeing like what they like to do and see maybe I could be a good fit for things. I never really had like a design job sort of thing, so it's always been freelance and just seeing how it goes. Yeah. And I love it, but it's definitely a lot of, it's a lot lot of work. But
freelance
it's fun.
Is challenging, yeah, in its own ways.
Well, it's also, you have to kind of think about it in terms of it being a job.
Right.
And that's hard for, anybody.
Yeah. Shout out to any freelancers who are watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. give us a shout in the chat.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
We're here for you. Also, I want to hear a podcast you listen to, because that's like my bread and butter, or my lifeblood for when I'm working through illustrations.
Oh, yeah.
All the different shows and things. So right now I'm just coloring into this drawing. I don't know if these will be the colors. Right now I just want to have some things filled out. And if you guys have any suggestions in the comments of, say, like what color should her headscarf be, feel free to shout it out, and then we can kind of play around and figure out what that could look like.
Freelance hype, yes. I like the usage of the word hype.
Hype is coming up a lot lately.
No, I love it. Yeah, more hype. Also, I think it's cool that you're using the lasso tool.
Oh, yeah.
To fill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, because right now I came at this from, I feel like even though I didn't really do it, I learned a lot from cartoonists. And so their whole process is a lot of times like you have line work and then you flat things out and then you'll bring texture and things like that. And so I remember learning things about the lasso tool. And because realistically, I'm just filling a base color in right now, I don't really need to worry about like texture coming through it because I can always add to that later or change the blending mode to be clear and then kind of erase into things as well. So sometimes it's just nice to kind of follow it and just fill it in as quick as possible. Or if I want to selectively get like some looser, I like playing with some of those techniques for printmaking, so trying to mimic like overprinting or like off-register sort of things where it's not lining up perfectly, because I find that sometimes makes it feel almost animated in a way, which is a little bit more in motion, which I like.
Heather and Rachel are suggesting mustard for a color suggestion.
Mustard's a good look.
Yes. And there are tons of awesome freelancers in the chat. I see.
All my freelance friends.
Yeah, I see you. I see you, Autumn. I see you, Anne-Marie.
What kind of work does everyone do?
Yeah.
Are you illustrators? Do you do other things too? What do you call yourselves?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, because I feel like just one word is like illustrators, just somewhat inadequate. Like.
Yeah, I think it's also, it worked really well in the past. Like in the 60s or whatever, it's like you knew what Illustrator was because they were doing like magazine ads and things like that, or children's books. But we do so many different things now that it's not quite enough, you know? So I'm curious what everyone else does.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna pick a mustard. Let's see what that looks like.
Val is a digital painter. Cool.
Digital painter, cool.
Hype. Ooh, animator, illustrator, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. That resonates with me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's a fun thing. You get to kind of build your own career over time. And sometimes it's like just trying a new thing and be like, I want to see what it looks like if I do this. Like, I collaborated with a friend of mine and we did animation together, and that was super fun because, like, I love, that was one thing, like, when I was a kid, I always wanted to, like, work for Disney or something like that. And then, sadly, I realized how much work it took, and I was like, I don't have that patience, but it's really cool.
Yeah, Tina says, I am a blood-pumping, air-filtering machine. That is true.
That's very true.
I am a human with interests and hobbies, one of which is illustration, but yeah, I'm also enjoy many other things.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's really important, too. I think because, like, especially if you're within a creative community, you can get so sucked into, like, shop talk and just being like, what kind of job did you do? Like, who is the client you worked with? Stuff like that. That's great, but you can burn out and then forget. It's like, oh, I have hobbies. I like things.
Yeah.
Being a cool person is also helpful, so.
Anna says, plus I'm also a human.
Yeah.
In theory, I'm an illustrator. Yes, I see. Graphic design, photography, communication designer, cartoonists, designing poker chips right now for the first time ever.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of creative challenge that provides.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a small space. It's like almost designing for like a stamp or something like that, where it's such a tiny little area to work with. I love those creative limitations, though. Is just see, like, what can you do with these things?
Yeah, like designing a deck of cards is like pretty hard because it has to work both upside down and like it has to be reflective.
Yeah. And there's like symmetry in some of that too. Just try to make sure it works well.
Jan says, since I do all of this as a hobby, I feel I can spread my interests across many professions, which is super true, super valid. And Jay-Z says, eternal learner. Yes.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Lifelong learning is so important. You gotta find ways to keep things interesting for yourself.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome to hear what everyone does. Also, it's cool that everyone is from just different parts of the world. And some people are waking up, some people are tuning in late at night.
I know, I'm deeply impressed with people just waking up to come in.
Deeply impressed. Deeply impressed.
That's so good.
Yeah.
It's a good way to start your day, though, so just like watch some work being done and get yourself excited for your own workload.
Christina says, I feel like the loaf of bread is smiling at us. It could be. It could be.
I like hidden faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is the term for that? It's like pareidolia, I think, where it's like you see faces and other things, like paper towel dispensers and things like that.
I always see faces when I look at cars.
Oh,
the front
yeah.
of cars. And like the two lights.
The lights,
And the bumper.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to look like really slick or intimidating, depending on the model, or like, you know, the friendly car.
Yeah. Ooh, shout out to everyone watching this at the office.
Nice.
So for those who are just tuning in, just also a reminder that in addition to Meg's awesome work that's streaming behind us, we also have a contest going on all through this week, and every day there's a different theme. Today's theme is animal shelter, so creating a piece of artwork that promotes your local animal shelter. And there's instructions on how to submit your piece in the challenge tab, which is right next to the chat. And in just about 20 minutes, we're going to be reviewing all of the challenges that we've gotten submitted. And yeah, we could look at a few right now. But we could also just.
I'm totally happy to see what people are working on. Yeah.
All right. We'll check out the first 5.
Cool.
And yeah, so we've already gotten some awesome ones. Yeah, so here are some of the submissions. So we've got this cute Pomeranian.
I'll bring it from the Pomeranian, yeah.
Yes, perhaps sensing a trend here. Yes. Cute. Yeah, any thoughts? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be really cool to also bring in, like, if this is like your local kind of adoption agency, like bring a little bit of that in. It's super adorable illustration, so just like maybe bring in either larger type, no, it's okay, or just like maybe some visual hints towards like the other location to like help the dog pop off the white background a little bit more. But I love its face. It's so good.
Yeah. That's a great suggestion. Yeah, making it super custom. Territorio.
Just like
these guates.
Nice.
Oh.
I like that he's tough, but he also feels like, you know, he's responsible.
Yeah. Local shelter made.
Nice. And
then. Yes, I'm seeing some people in the chat mentioning different animals, horses, puppies, all relevant.
Yeah.
Aww, this one's cute.
Aw, yeah, that's a really good color palette too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that works really well. It's like super charming.
Yeah, I like that the girl has cat ears as well.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
That's a good nod. Yeah. Maybe she'll have a little tail too.
So cute. And then we'll just do one more. Ooh.
Yeah.
Hands of Love, Animal Shelter.
Yeah, I think this works well as like a really graphic sort of image. I might be careful with like the drop shadow a little bit because I think the cat, especially its face, gets a little soft. But I think it's really nice having like the red integrate in and just maybe even like play around a little bit with the lower edge of the heart. Just because I'm gonna go all like illustration teachers, like there's tangents in the hand, like there's a little line hitting right from the heart shape into the hand. So it's, if you give it a little more breathing room, I think that would be really great.
Yeah, these are great pro tips. It's just like the little things that
it's
add
like
the last like 5%.
Definitely. Yeah, because a lot of it's just like refining and seeing like, oh, okay, these things kind of help it pop. Or, you know, I mean, I even have that a lot where I draw a lot and then I realize it's like, I could have simplified it down a little bit more and that might make it even stronger. So it's just like kind of learning each way how to make it a little crisper for yourself and deliver that impact that way.
Rachel asks, did mine not make it in? No, don't fret. Never fear. We're only just looking at the first couple submissions and we're going to do all of them at the end, but just to kind of sprinkle it through the session and see what everyone's up to. So don't fret. We definitely have it. Yeah.
I'm seeing a couple questions as well, just asking like what I'm using. So again, I'm using the iPad Pro and then I'm using AstroPad to just throw my screen and Photoshop on my laptop onto it. So it lets me see and draw and still work with the pencil, which is super comfortable. The Cintiq ones work super well that way too, but I really like how this feels in the hand. It's very light and like traditional media in that way.
Cool. Thanks for everyone who submitted, and also thanks Meg for the awesome and specific feedback.
Oh yeah.
So we'll be checking out the rest of the submissions in about 17 minutes. There's a little countdown in the corner over there. So make sure to get your submission in before then if you want to have a chance to win a print of this awesome piece that we're making.
And it's really going to transform over the next 3 days. So like right now, it's going to be a little rougher just as I throw things in and see how like colors work next to each other. So like I said, these colors, I think I do like the idea of the mustard headscarf. I think that's a good add. But I have a feeling this is going to change into a lot of really fun colors as I go.
Yeah. Thank you to those who suggested the mustard.
I think I have to have some kind of variation of red for the thank you bag because it's always that classic like red and white bag. So, and I might do that actually to throw that in. So because right now it's really black and white in the drawing, and it's not going to be that way once we get done with it. So just allowing it to kind of turn into that would be really fun. So I'm going to go back in. I do need to relabel these at some point. Right now they're just going to be like layer 4, layer 3. So once you get into like 50 or more layers, then it's just like a nightmare trying to figure out what each thing is. But
yeah.
But I'm going to go back to that line layer that we made with all the texture. And I'm going to select just like a red color.
Yeah, Jose, to answer your question about what tablet Meg is using, she's using an iPad.
Yeah, I'm using the iPad Pro. It's the 12.9 inch size. It's the first one, not the most recent one that they just did.
And Emmanuel also has an interesting question. How do you apply the color without damaging the previous layer?
So right now I'm working in multiple layers right now. So say like that hot pink layer for her pants, that's a layer underneath my line work layer. So the line work is in this folder right now, and I can just kind of toggle it off, which is sometimes helpful too because a lot of these lines may wind up getting knocked out and just turned into shape, so they'll still keep like the texture of it, but I like having like an interplay between like selective line and shape. So sometimes I will just like kind of play around with like taking the lines out and seeing like how those colors will look next to each other.
Right.
So yeah, working with a lot of layers helps for that, so you don't wind up accidentally like erasing something and then feeling like you can't get it back again. I know some people who do work all on one layer, and it's super impressive, but it's really hard for me to think that way. I always think in layers. So.
Yeah, me too. I have like 200 layers. Like,
Do you?
yeah, like everything that I could possibly want to manipulate, I'll do a new layer. It's like, why not? You know, it's like the hand. I'm having trouble with this hand. New layer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that works really well.
Yeah.
I just always like, it's kind of, no, it's not terrible. It's just like when I work with clients and then like they like everything and then I send the finished file and then they're like, wait, can you change this part? Then I have to go through all those layers and be like, where did I put it? So that's where like labeling things is really helpful.
Yeah. Jan says, who needs food when you have Adobe Live? Slumps to the floor.
Food's important
Yeah,
too,
food's
though.
important.
I
You
love
gotta
food.
make sure you're healthy. It's all too easy to forget eating while you sit in front of your computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I like to do like preparing a batch of meals before, like little snacks.
Yeah.
I started making onigiri,
Ooh,
which
that
are
sounds
like
so good.
yeah, these like Japanese rice balls with little
Yeah,
salmon
sometimes
flakes.
seaweed and other fillings inside.
Yeah.
I made one once with like, I got like a duck from a Asian market and then put duck inside of it.
Oh, this looks awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's like once you start like getting like the colors in, it starts changing things a lot.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I have this red thank you in before I forget.
Yeah. We've got some really interesting questions in the chat. Nathan says horse attack.
Horse attack?
Sounds like there's an interest in horses.
Horses.
Yeah, maybe we could like.
Horses are always the thing that illustrators are afraid to draw because they're so intimidating.
Yeah, horse hind legs are weird.
I just bypass it by just knowing it's going to be bad and just like, it's going to be a wonky horse. It'll be great.
Yeah. And then Mr. Director wants to know what artists inspired you.
Oh, that's a really awesome but really tough question. I always liked a lot of like mid-century artists, like when I was in college especially. So like Charlie Harper was really great for that. The Provincens, they did a lot of like really cool children's books and things like that. I always liked Maurice Sendak. Like he did some really awesome things, and I loved Where the Wild Things Are. But yeah, I feel really lucky that I know a lot of really awesome cartoonists who sometimes they work with illustration, but sometimes they just like work with comics as well, and just like seeing how they approach things and tell stories in that way. And I love like looking at printmaking too. It's really fun to just like look outside of your field too, because I'm sure everyone knows that, but it's like you see so much online anymore. Like we're such a visual culture, and you know, you see things through social media, so it's really awesome, but sometimes it's too much to see like all the illustrators doing all the things all at once. So it's fun to look at like architecture and sculpture and stuff like that. I used to love like looking at National Geographic and stuff like that too, to just see like what else was out there in the world beyond just like what I do for a living.
Speaking of National Geographic, Val says the strangest hind legs are giraffe legs. They literally are backwards. No joke.
Are they? Oh man,
Maybe.
Giraffes are my favorite animal. As when I was a kid, I didn't know that, but that's kind of amazing. I saw one. There was like a giraffe that had like a zigzag neck.
Whoa.
I think it may have been like a defect, but it was still fine now. It was just like something happened, so it has this very bizarre little neck. Okay, I'm gonna change her pants because I think that neon. Oh, shoot. I forgot I put the headscarf and her pants on the same layer, so that would just change everything. And actually, before I do that, I'm just gonna connect things. Sometimes when my drawings are so busy, it can be really tough to remember like where the legs are. Like I started coloring in over here, and I was like, wait, that's not her pants. That's an entirely different area. And another thing I'm gonna bring into this as well, I drew, so one tool that I just found recently that is like super, super fun, but also very cheap, were these like children's crayons that are like gel crayons, and they basically feel like you're drawing with lipstick.
Oh.
They're super smooth. And
What are they called?
It's like Mr. Sketch gel crayons basically, and you get like a colored set of like 12 of them or whatnot.
Nice.
But it just gives this like super soft buttery thing, especially on clear paper, which I drew like a couple shapes just so I could get that texture in. So you can see like it just gets this really nice rough texture that I think I can color into it, and I want to like erase into this so that I can get kind of like a rougher like brick sort of feel.
Yeah.
I love a lot of the things that you can get from just like really rough dry media, and even like I got really into like risograph printing recently.
Oh, cool.
Which, if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically a mix between like if you had a photocopier and a screen printing, if they had a baby, it's basically that.
Yeah, my studio mate Ryan has a risograph.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It is like, I feel like it's kind of hard to use though. Like I'm
tricky.
Confused most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps if you have like a background. Like if you work within like a lot of layers in Photoshop, then that helps. If you have like a printmaking background, I think it helps a lot too. Just in case you guys are curious what I'm doing, I pasted that image in which I already had separated, and I'm just gonna fill it so that now it's a color. It's a weird color against that green.
And what was that shortcut that you just did?
So I did, I think that was Option. Yeah, let me see really quick.
Option delete.
Yeah, Option delete will fill with your foreground.
Okay.
I think, right?
So
yeah, Option delete. Sorry, I get so used to the key command that I kind of forget like which one is which, because Command delete will do your background color, and then Option delete does your foreground color. And I have like actions within that too if I want to. But yeah, risograph printing is like super fun, but it's like you can't fully register things all that well, and just trying to figure out like what tools will make what results. But it's really fun. I learned a couple weeks ago from my friend Kate Bingham Burt. She has a studio in Portland called Outlet, and so she basically runs risograph workshops, and
awesome.
It's super addictive. It's really fast, and it's just such a really accessible medium for a lot of people.
Do you feel like the illustration community in Portland is large, or?
You know, I think for, like, Portland's not a giant city, so for what it is, we have, like, a really dedicated group of designers and illustrators working. We have a really great event every year called Design Week Portland, and that's actually starting next week. So there's workshops, we have open studios and all sorts of things, so people can come and see what people are doing and learn from each other, and then we have a really good opening party and things like that too. So yeah, it's a small, but I feel like we're very fiercely dedicated to the craft and to growing together. We have a couple of colleges in town that PSU focuses on graphic design, but there's a lot of illustration, and then PNCA has a really good illustration program as well. So, you know, a lot of really cool young artists come through and really revitalize the city in that way too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun. I've lived there for 8 years now. I lived in Arizona before that, and it was great, but I also, like, I'm used to living by the water and walking, and that wasn't really conducive for that. So it's nice to be able to move around and just enjoy all the green of Portland as well.
Yeah, I really love Portland every time I visit. I'm like, I don't want to leave. There's so many
great.
cute little, like, indie shops everywhere. And
it's just like, it's such a green city, so it's you can go to the forest really easily.
Yes,
and
you can just
we're by
bike
the
there.
water,
Yeah.
so it's really satisfying for all that. Okay, so my layers were kind of a little wonky. I just dragged that my brick texture layer down below everything else so that it can actually work decently. One thing I'm gonna do, because like I said, I want to like erase into it and build out kind of like a looser brick texture or brick pattern. So I'm gonna actually use a layer mask again for that, because I can basically just like carve into it without deleting. And so basically I have the brush set to black, and I'm going to go back to that. I don't know. I was going to use Mr. Natural, but sometimes I like also using like some of the rake brushes that Kyle has. So it might be kind of fun to do some cool texture in there. Just do every now and again. Just build in some stripy brick.
Oh, cool. That's a nice effect.
Yeah. I feel like the rake textures and the dot textures are really fun to kind of bring in like a little bit more of a graphic edge to things.
It's cool that you're able to do this on your iPad.
Yeah.
Makes me want to try this now.
It's really accessible. I found it way more fun. Like I would work, I think I had a couple different tablets, and a Cintiq and an off-brand Cintiq for a while. And they were really fun to work with, but it was so big, and like I would always use it for work. And now that I have the iPad, it's like I can just draw for fun. I can go anywhere and just like chill out, and I really enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
Not to say go buy a thing.
For
but
me, a big one is when I use a Cintiq, I have to be at a desk, basically.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of times where I'm like on the couch or like in bed, and I'm like, I just wish I could do
you just
my
want
work.
to chill out a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a what was it? The Companion, I think, the portable one, the Cintiq Companion.
Oh yes.
And that one was pretty good, but it was still like it was really heavy to carry around. And I used to, I worked out of a different studio in town, which was like not that far. It was like a 15-minute walk, but just having to lug that around just wasn't really fun.
Could you leave it there?
I probably could, but like sometimes you want to work from home a little bit,
Right.
and sometimes you want to go out and about. So it just depended on what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Also, I just want to give a shout out to Gus, who is manning the Adobe Live chat and, is the one behind all of this. So
Thanks, Gus.
He says anyone working on illustration would love to see or hear if anyone's working on any cool projects.
Yeah. I just finished a mural, which was super fun, but very hard. But I want to hear what you guys are working on too.
Yeah. And like Val has mentioned, the challenge deadline is coming up in about 3 minutes. So we're going to close the entries for our session for this section. If you aren't able to get it in now, don't worry. You can also always submit it in the next session, which is coming up soon. And we'll be reviewing all the entries for the theme of animal shelter in just a few minutes, and the winner will get a copy of a print of this awesome artwork that Meg is working on.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. Rachel wants to know where we can see the mural at.
So it is at a bar/coffee shop called Coffee Beer in Portland. It's in their bathroom. I posted images on my Instagram. Last week I was doing a lot of Instagram stories, so I was showing all the process for it. And I think it took about 45 hours or so. Thankfully, my studio mate was helpful in like painting and helping me kind of work it out. It was really interesting having to just like translate like a drawing from the screen to such a big space. It was about like 7.5 by 10 foot tall, and that's not huge, but also it's just like very different if you're so used to like looking at something that's like no more than 8.5 by 11 or a little bigger, you know.
Yeah. I've seen a few questions in the chat about how you can find like our work. So the Instagram that Meg's talking about is, I think, instagram.com/Meg
Meg Hunt Illo. So ILLO.
Yeah.
It looks like Meg Huntio, I've been told, which I didn't think about, but I was like, oh yeah. And also meghunt.com is my website. And then your Instagram is...
I am by Alice Lee everywhere. Lee. Yes. I wish I could be Alice Lee, but
Is there another?
there are quite many Alice Lees on the internet. We share the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the fact that we all coexist.
Yeah. Well, it's
like-
cool, especially if you know that there are other like creative people with your name too. My friend Jen has that too, where there's another designer with her name. And she's like, sometimes she'll get emails from people asking for the other one. She's like, oh, you have to go to this person instead. I think the only other one I knew with my name, I think there was like a character on like Grey's Anatomy that had my name, or a doctor or somebody. I was like, that's not me.
Yeah. The other Alice Lee is there are many other Alice Lees. The one that we've been like, I get a lot of her tweets and stuff, is a really talented singer.
Oh, that's
who's
really
actually,
cool.
I think, around my age, so it's kind of cool.
You'll have to meet one day.
Yeah, we will.
So yeah, as you can kind of see, I'm starting to like build in a little bit of the pattern going on. And
Yeah. Ooh, it's really coming along.
Yeah.
And just in time, our challenge submission has ended. Thank you to everyone who has submitted. And if you didn't get it in, like I said, don't worry. We have another session coming up. And we'll also have 2 more days of streaming. So 2 more opportunities. And then each day has 4 sessions. So
So many
8
opportunities,
more.
yeah.
8 more opportunities.
I hope you guys are watching all the other streams too, because I'm sure you're going to learn so many different things.
Yeah, so many things, yeah. Just given, based off of the last few submissions, we're just going to take a quick look now at all of the awesome work that's come our way. And it's really cool to see, it's cool just to like imagine the creative energy of like the last 2 hours. It's like...
Yeah, it's so impressive that you guys have been just, jumping in and making something from scratch. And I mean, that's the thing, is like you can take forever on a thing, but you can also just like jump in and make something really immediate and really fun.
Yeah, it's like all of this.
Are great.
All of this, imagine the number of entries times 2 hours. That's
right.
Like, that's like days of like creative time. So that's so awesome. So yeah, the last one that we looked at was this one that Meg had some really insightful feedback on. So this is the next one. Love. It is not complicated.
Nice. I really like the variation, like line weights for it. Like, I think having your color be behind it really helps everything else pop, because like the finer line detail is so like textured and patterny, which is really cool.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for submitting this one.
So like adopt a doggo.
Siobhan. Yeah. Oh, and another cool thing is on the side you can also see the person's Behance profile. So if you want to see more, check it out at this link. Ooh.
Oh, nice. Got some of the creepy crawlies in there too.
Yeah. This is from Claire, 3 for 1 friend shelter.
It makes me think like there would be like you buy 3 get 1 free basically.
Yeah. I kind of like this font actually.
Yeah.
It makes me feel very nostalgic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It feels very bubbly in a fun way. Yeah, I like this a lot. Like, the cat character is such a unique way to draw that kind of face, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
The spider gets a little lost for me, so I might like try to bump up your color a little bit more, or bring in like a little bit of the accent color. It'd be really fun to see more of that magenta kind of crop up.
Yeah.
Because it's so bold.
Actually, a really interesting tip that Meg taught me a few years ago that I use all the time.
Oh, yeah.
is if you want to make sure to check your values, just take like a color illustration like this and throw on a saturation layer, bump down the saturation so it's grayscale. And then if you can see the contrast when there's no color, then you know it's like readable. But if this gets lost when there's no saturation, then you know to make it lighter or darker.
Yeah, because it could be really challenging to kind of tell with color, especially like if you have like bright yellows and things like that. Like they wind up, if you desaturate it winds up being very light, and so things will feel really bold. But then you'll be like, oh, this is flat in a way I don't really know why. So that can be really helpful. I also do another thing where, if I want a second window just to look every now and again, I can make a new window. So I can show that actually really quick. If you go into Window and then Arrange. Down here, there's new window for your file.
Oh.
So a lot of times I'll open up a second window of it so that I can see, and I'll just drag this over here. So
that's so cool. I didn't know about this.
I didn't want to place anything. Okay. So basically, this allows you to have a second window. But the cool thing about it is that you can actually change the way you look at it. So if you go into View and then Proof Setup, there's this option. So this would let you, if say you're trying to figure something out and you want to see how it looks, if it's RGB when you're looking at it and you want to change it to CMYK. Right now it's at working CMYK. You could always change it to like monitor RGB, and you can kind of see the colors shift a little. But what I really like it for is like if you go into Proof Setup and then do Custom, there's a lot of different options in this. But here where it says Device to Simulate, they have some really cool options for, I think in here, it's in a different area, but this shows you like how it might look on some papers as well. But what I really use it for is so I can see a grayscale version. So I'll a lot of times do like gray gamma, and now my image is grayscale. But the thing is, like, if I'm drawing, actually, hang on one sec.
To answer your question, Jose, the original drawing was the original sketch was done digitally, but this was scanned in, and then Meg is now coloring and cleaning it up digitally.
Yeah, it's basically what you're seeing right now is the first layer, the line layer is traditional media that's just separated out, and then we're doing digital coloring with it. But yeah, so this right now I have both of them open, and if I decide then I'm gonna grab, say like this dark red, and then I want to start coloring.
Whoa, does it mirror?
Yeah, it'll actually mirror it. So let me just do a throwaway layer. So if I just start drawing in, you'll start seeing it on the gray version. So it's really helpful that you can look at these things and be like, okay, this sort of works, but maybe my values aren't working as well as I want, so I can just adapt that on the fly. But it's not actually damaging. Like if I draw into this, it won't damage it either. So it's really handy because a lot of times, like, what I'll do is I'll have this gray image, but then I'll like shrink it down really small so that it's almost like a thumbnail view of it, and I can just like squint. And so if my values look okay, then I feel pretty good about how the image is looking too.
This is probably awesome for designing icons as well.
Oh yeah.
To make sure they're super readable at small sizes. Cool. Okay. Thanks for the knowledge.
But I know you had a couple more of the contest ones. So.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Meg.
Of course.
Yeah, it's super helpful. And thank you, Claire, for submitting this. It's from Tima. Ooh. Home
that's
is where
really
love
cool.
is. SPCA.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all the line, like the dash line. It really helps pull your eye around the image in a really nice way.
Yeah, I love the colors. Yeah.
Is that its paws in the pink parts, or I can't quite tell with that part.
Not sure. It could just be like interesting blobs.
Oh yeah, maybe it's like it's the pattern of its fur.
Oh, so cute. It's very simple. Yes, thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, this I feel like those shapes could be really fun to play around with too. they feel like they could stack up really nicely into like a repeat pattern, maybe even. Like I could see you using this as the basis for like a whole body of like design material for a ASPCA sort of thing.
To answer your question, Wendy, who says she feels like she just missed something important.
Sure.
Meg just went over some quick tips to just like evaluate how successful like your color contrasts and values are.
Yeah, basically just because a lot of times if you're working in color, it just might not be reading quite right for you. So basically we were talking a little bit about using like an adjustment layer so that you could kind of dial back saturation and just like look at it as grayscale. And then I was showing people how to use a second layer. So I'll just do it again really quick. But if you go to Window and then Arrange, then all the way down here, you'll see New Window for your file. Oops. Sorry, trying to do this on a trackpad. Yeah, so that opens up a second window, which I should be able to pull that open. So with this then, if I want to see how this looks as grayscale, I can go into View and then Proof Setup. And if you go to Custom, if you look for anything that says gray, so here there's like working gray, a lot of times I just go for that, but there's a lot of other gray gammas and things like that. If you do working gray, then it basically just turns your second view of your image into a grayscale version of it. But it hasn't taken away the image, the information, like the colors are all still there. It's just a different view of it. This can also be really helpful if you're trying to see like what colorblind people look like, how they see your image. So like
accessibility.
It really helps if you're trying to do things for a wider audience in that way.
This is awesome.
Yeah, so having something like the grayscale view just allows you to see how your black and white and gray values are all looking. And so usually just what I do is allow for that, set it up to like a grayscale, and then I might just shrink it down so that I can see it a little bit better and just see it. It's like, okay, I want this to pop more. Maybe I need some more white or lighter colors to kind of help with that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you for the recap.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm learning so much stuff. Like
there's just so many things Photoshop can do. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, and it's crazy. Like we've barely scratched the surface. So anyway, back to the galleries, the awesome submissions. This is another piece that Walter submitted. Care Friends. Got some vector action website going on. I love the look of vectors, but I don't have the patience for vector. So I have a great it's such a
admiration
different
for
skill
people.
set.
Yeah. I like how like you have this really nice arc. Like you can see like a line in your composition with how the trees bend around the animals. I think again, just like playing with type a little bit more, like giving a little bit more space between friends and that dog.
Crane. Yeah.
And also like, just giving a little more breathing room because you have plenty of room in the upper part of your composition. So maybe just bringing that up a little bit larger, maybe allowing like the yellow, like sun kind of color to go behind the trees could be really nice.
Yeah.
Good work.
I like the dog bot, the cat bot. Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
By Michelle.
Very cool. Limited color. I love limited color so
I
much.
like the limited color palette. I like the stylization.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah, I really like the way that you have these like really simple shapes, but they communicate so much for it. So
yeah. Is there else? Oh, we love you too.
It's was it the animals from the Brementown musicians? I think, right?
Oh, really?
The animals stacked up on top of each other.
Yeah. I love that you incorporated a horse.
Yeah.
Thank you, Else.
Oh, yeah. I like the little eyes like around too, like the pig there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always so fun to see like when people can integrate hand lettering in with illustration. It just makes it feel like such a composed image that way.
Right. Especially for a piece like this, which is like very messaging oriented. Yeah, great shapes, great silhouette. Oh.
No.
Yeah, animals equals love. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is like really simple but effective, and just having like silhouettes can really drive that message, like the interaction between the person and the dog.
Yeah, definitely. And like even though you don't see the details of like the person's face, like the silhouettes really
there's just
convey.
like such a connection with that, so you don't need a face for it.
Or like details.
Yeah, so it's, again, another one of those things where like less is more. Like just
Yeah.
really letting it stand out that way.
Nice, Felicia. This is by Autumn.
Ooh, cool. Change your perspective.
Oh,
get
it? Because it's an upside down cat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. You're not a crazy cat lady. That is true.
That's really clever. So,
Yeah. Very
good work.
true. Where did that come from?
The crazy cat lady?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
What?
I just feel like it showed up in sitcoms and stuff.
Yeah, why are
but-
you crazy if you love animals? It's ooh.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, this is
Getting the
so
texture on.
intriguing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun seeing like people kind of get like more cut out sort of feel.
Yeah.
It's kind of reminding me of like, was it like Ed Emberley and like that really like he had those books where it was like learn how to draw animals and it was all like really simple shapes and then
Aw.
you build off of it.
Yeah. And
That's really good.
I love how you incorporated like random bits of type as well. Kind of has this
Oh yeah,
like,
it says adopt in it. Nice.
oh, clever.
yeah,
clever
you guys are getting
duck.
so clever.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. All right, so we've gotten a good,
Good chunk, yeah.
amazing submissions.
Yeah.
Starting from this white Pomeranian,
Uh-huh.
a theme of Pomeranians, all the way up. Would it be helpful to look through them all again? Or-
So how many are we picking our favorite one?
Yes,
Or-
just
okay.
one.
Oh, that's gonna be tough. There's so
yeah.
many good ones.
Here, I'll just
it
swipe
might be
through
good.
quickly. Thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
for submitting. Now go back again.
Yeah. They're also awesome.
Yeah, it's so cool. to
I
think about,
know.
like everyone just.
But it's hard to choose just one. But I think that the last one we just looked at with the adopt, I really love that. Yeah.
Oh, this one.
It just feels like such
Yeah.
a really fun graphic way to approach it.
Yes.
But you guys all did an amazing job in just 2 hours too.
Yeah.
so
Thank you
good
for
job.
just submitting these, everyone. And congrats to Anna.
Yeah.
Yeah. You will win a copy of the print that Meg has been working on.
Yes, it will be really cool one day.
Yes.
Right now it feels like a mess to me, but
It
that's
is cool
kind
already.
of how it goes.
And
I'm sure all of you kind of see that with your own process too. Is like, yeah, there's those times where it's like, it's almost like it's baking and it's not quite there yet. But it'll get there one day.
Yeah. And like I said before, if you just got your submission in under the wire or if you're still working, don't worry, we've got another session coming right up. So stay tuned. We've got about like 10 more minutes in our session.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then we'll be back again later in the days of the week. So tomorrow we'll have a different theme. And then, yeah, so Meg will be continuing to work on this fun illustration.
I'm gonna at least get those bricks kind of worked out.
Yeah.
And then I think it'd be really fun to start thinking about if you guys are staying through tomorrow as well. Like, help me figure out what we should put on all these billboards or these sweet paste posters. That'll take a little more time, so I might see how far I can get today with this, and then we'll kind of reassess. It'll be really interesting to see just the process over a few days because, working as an illustrator, a lot of times you're kind of beholden to what your client needs. So,
Yeah.
so a lot of times it's like I need to get it done in a few hours or a day, and I don't usually like step back and then come back to it the next day and keep working on it. So I'm really excited to see how that transforms like my view of the image.
Yeah. And also on day 3, I might be jumping in
Ooh, yeah.
with a little cameo in the back.
Yeah.
Helping out with some of the posters. So it could be a true collaborative
That'd be real fun.
effort. True collab. Yeah. Also what's cool is, well, you're using Photoshop, but what's cool is with the iPad app, like Sketch, for example.
Yeah.
You can save out as a PSD, and all the layers are saved as actual PSD layers. So then you can like go in and
Yeah.
do the same stuff. So it's pretty cool.
It's a really fun way to transition back and forth. I've been using, actually, I haven't used the Photoshop app as much. I was using the Illustrator, is it Illustrator Draw? Is that what it is?
Yeah, draw. Yeah.
I was using that one to like kind of do more simpler shapes and then bring it into Photoshop. I really like the mobile Photoshop app as well, but I'm so addicted to like masks and things like that. I don't think they do that as much. So maybe one day. But there's just so much you can do in Photoshop, and I'm like, I just want to I'll just do it in Photoshop and go from there.
I like what you're doing, which is using your computer's Photoshop, but using this iPad screen. Like, I think I'll definitely try that. Probably today.
Yeah. It's really handy, especially if you use like key commands and things like that too, because I like having like all the touch abilities for the iPad, but there's just so many things that speed up time. And I remember having like an app I download on my phone so I could like set up like actions and hotkeys and stuff.
That's so smart. Yeah.
But it's like another tool you need to just do it. And sometimes you just want to go and do a thing. So yeah, making it simpler for yourself.
Ooh, Kathleen's coming in with matcha, very jelly, some coffee.
That sounds refreshing. Oh, and I think someone was asking earlier if this was a cat on the key ring. I kind of was originally drawing it like a Boston Terrier, but I kind of like the idea. It's just a cat. That's your cat key for all your dog walks.
So funny. I know, it's this cat. It's like, what am I doing here? Yeah. So our session is almost coming to a close, but coming up next is Kathleen and Doug. So make sure to stay tuned. Get hype. Is the theme. The hype.
Too hype.
Hype is real, so yeah. Yes, Laura says, Meg, what an amazing live. Outstanding. It is.
Oh, thank you.
It has been really cool to see like all of your tips and tricks.
Yeah, there's just, like I've been saying, there's just so many different things you can do, and then you get so used to them after a while that you forget that they're like not everyone uses them. So I'm really glad. I hope like I didn't zoom through too much with you guys, but I hope even if you find like one cool new tip, then that'll be really awesome for you.
Yeah.
Make your life easier.
If you have questions, definitely you feel free to ask them. We're coming we've got like 5 more minutes, but you can also ask them tomorrow. Because I'm sure like if you have questions, like other people probably have questions about that as well.
Yeah, no questions too weird either, so don't worry.
Yeah. What is your like casual beverage drink of choice? Whether it's like matcha or pomok tea, boba.
I feel like I drink more coffee than I should have. I've been drinking a lot of like fizzy carbonated waters too. That's been very helpful.
Fun. Yeah.
But tea's really good too. I don't know. I like all the beverages. I'm not gonna like shun any one beverage. So yeah, this area back down here, I didn't actually bring in that texture that I had done, but I think I can mimic it using some other things to bring it together. But as you can see, it's starting to get there. I really need to change the purple on her face because it looks very bizarre to me. But
if you've got a tight deadline, for example, you mentioned you do a lot of editorial work.
Yeah.
If you've got a tight deadline, do you still do this process where you're doing a lot of like digital analog?
Yeah, I shouldn't, but I do. I try to make it easier on myself, but I just love overcomplicating things for myself. And I'm like, I'll figure it out as I go along. And I do, but then I'm just like, why? So it depends. Like sometimes if like it's a really quick turnaround, then I might be like, okay, we're doing really limited palette and just like stick to 3 colors and see where that goes. I've actually been working with Ren, who's in the chat, and another friend of mine. We've been doing like this weekly Instagram account where we're doing like a bird a week, basically.
Oh, awesome.
It's called A Willow-Airy, and it's really pretty fun.
How can they find this?
So I don't know how. Can we write it in the chat or?
Yeah, probably.
Because it's harder to spell, but okay.
Yeah, thanks,
Kathleen's got us.
Kathleen.
Thank you. But yeah, that's been really fun because like last week I was working on that mural and I was like, oh, Thursday's my day to post. I have to get a thing done. So I was like, I got 2 hours. What can I do in 2 hours? And as you guys have all shown us, like you can do a lot in 2 hours.
Yeah, totally.
But you know, it can be really like you can get sucked into like process a lot, and I always have to try to stop myself from getting too like obsessed with like, oh, it's got to be just right, and you know, just move fast. So just learning to be better at that is always important. One thing I'm gonna do too. So you can kind of see I have like a black outline around like my brick area.
Yes.
And I'm gonna get rid of that. So a lot of times what I'm doing is selecting the color that I'm going to use. And then because, again, it's locked and I can draw into it, I'll just go and color it. I may not be on the right layer. Or sometimes I have things selected in that way. Working? Oh, I'm not in the right layer. Haha.
Thanks.
This
to
is
Gus.
why you need to label your layers.
Thanks to Gus for just posting the Instagram link to
awesome.
Villary if you guys are interested in following along on this art project that Meg's talking about.
Yeah, we're
Check it out
basically
there.
drawing all the birds. It's very fun. But we decided to make something like that because we wanted to kind of experiment a little bit. And my friend Tad Carpenter, he does a really cool project called Sunday Suns. And so every Sunday he posts something that involves a sun. And that was just like a free excuse to draw anything. So it could be like something for his mom, or it could be like he'll paint a pumpkin or
That's
anything.
awesome.
But you have like some framework, and that allows you to kind of keep experimenting.
Some constraint.
Yeah, constraints are so helpful because it's like if you can do anything, it can be so intimidating.
A question for you.
Yes.
So you just colored in, for those who might have missed it, you just colored in the black outline that you had around the upper.
Yeah, so if I go back through the history, I can kind of show you. So before I had like a fine line outline just so I could kind of figure out the box for this image. But because it's locked, I can go and color it. So as I was painting through, I just selected the color of the brick that I have right now and then started just selectively doing that.
Got it. So my question was, I'm just curious, like, what your thought process is. Why did you do that instead of deleting it altogether?
Well, I like having it there just in case, because sometimes I might do a thing and then halfway through decide it didn't really work. A lot of it's like learning as I go with these things. So it's just a matter of like, how can I keep things so that if I mess up, I don't lose it. I think over the last few years, just learning how to have like a non-destructive kind of workflow was really important for me, just because I wanted to make sure that I could just make the work and not worry that, oh, I've gone and done 50 different things and then I can't get back through the history and like fix something I've made a mistake.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to our stream today. It's been really fun to both chat with everyone and also follow along Meg's workflow. And it's cool to see this piece unfold. We're gonna watch Meg take it to final through the end of the week. So coming up next, we've got Doug with Kathleen, and they'll be designing t-shirt graphics, which is very exciting. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you at this time tomorrow.
Yeah, see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.